So I recently had lunch with a colleague of mine, a serious academic economist.
Ooh, one of those.
Exactly. Prides himself on dealing strictly in cold, hard data. And he spots this well-worn sci-fi novel on my table, and his reaction was visceral. He actually scoffed. Yeah, waved his hand like he was wafting away a bad smell. To him, the whole genre was just laser guns and escapist fantasies, a childish distraction from the real work, market forces, supply chains. He gave me this pitying look, basically asking when I was going to grow up.
I think I know where this is going.
You do, because then the conversation shifts to the tech industry and the whole dynamic just flips.
Right.
He leans in, voice drops to a whisper, and starts obsessing over how AI is disrupting labor value, how these giant corporations are becoming more powerful than nation states, how we're heading for this crisis of resource allocation in a digital age.
All brand new, terrifying phenomena, of course.
Of course. He was agitated, sweating a little, and I didn't have the heart to tell him
that every single unprecedented nightmare he was describing
was already solved, analyzed, deconstructed in the very book he just sneered at. It just struck me so hard in that moment. He thought he was analyzing the future, but he was really just stumbling through a scenario that sci-fi writers had mapped out decades ago.
And that is the massive misunderstanding at the heart of the genre.
Exactly. We think it's about the technology. It's not. It is, and always has been, the ultimate laboratory for economics.
That laboratory is indeed what we're mapping out today. Our mission is to explore a powerful, highly polarizing idea, accelerationism, and analyze how science fiction provides the ultimate thought experiment for its core assumptions.
Which are?
That technology and capitalism are forces meant to be unleashed, not constrained, and that societal stagnation is the true existential threat. We'll be looking at this from its deep philosophical roots all the way to its contemporary Silicon Valley manifestations.
And then we'll test its claims against some of the most insightful fiction out there.
That's the plan.
Okay, so accelerationism. It's definitely a term that's gone mainstream in the last few years, especially with all the AI debates. But before we get to the current controversy, let's unpack this idea. What exactly is accelerationism at its core? How far back do its roots actually go?
At its core, it's a range of ideologies that call for using processes like capitalism and technological change to create radical social transformation.
So it's not just about moving fast?
Not at all. It's about believing that certain destructive, transformative forces, historically capitalism, today technology, must be pushed past their breaking point to usher in whatever comes next.
And this isn't a new thing. You mentioned it traces back through 3 historical waves.
That's right. The first wave, you can trace it back to the late 60s, early 70s with French post-Marxists. People like Deleuze, Guattari, Lyotard. This was largely theoretical, coming out of the failures of May '68.
And the second wave?
That was the 90s. Far more volatile. It came from the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit, or the CCRU, led by Nick Land.
And the third is what we're seeing now.
Exactly. The more recent, highly visible Promethean left accelerationism of the 2010s. That's what most people are familiar with today.
It's fascinating that the origins involve people trying to push past Marx, or maybe even use Marx against himself. Where did this initial impulse to accelerate rather than resist first find its philosophical footing?
Well, accelerationists are very good at finding intellectual ammunition in the past. One of the precursors they always cite is Friedrich Nietzsche.
Okay.
Specifically a fragment in The Will to Power. Nietzsche argued that the leveling process of European man, this rise of mass culture, democratic equality, what he saw as mediocrity, shouldn't be checked.
He said it should be accelerated.
Exactly, actively accelerated. This idea of embracing a destructive force to clear the ground for something superior, that's a foundational attitude.
So instead of trying to preserve the old order against the tide of change, you become the force driving the tide.
Precisely. And even Karl Marx, ironically, provides some of the key texts for this framework. Accelerationists are deeply fond of his 1848 speech on the question of free trade. Marx was asked if he supported free trade or protectionism. He argued that the protective system is conservative. It's designed to maintain stability.
Whereas free trade is destructive.
It's destructive. It breaks up old social relations, pushes class antagonism to the extreme, tears apart national boundaries.
Which, in the accelerationist view, is a good thing.
A very good thing. Marx concludes, the free trade system hastens the social revolution. It is in this revolutionary sense alone, gentlemen, that I vote in favor of free trade.
Wow.
So accelerationists seize on this. They favor the Marx, who celebrates capitalism's immense destructive power, the Marx of the Communist Manifesto over the Marx of Capital, who focuses on how hard it is to escape. They see capitalism as this indispensable revolutionary tool.
And this leads us directly to the foundational passage from Deleuze and Guattari's Anti-Oedipus, which you said really provided the central inspiration for the whole movement.
That book from 1972 is basically the source code. They looked at capitalism and they saw it as the most radically decoding and de-territorializing system in history.
Okay, we need to pause there for a moment because those terms, decoding and de-territorialization, are crucial, but they're also jargon that can really trip people up. What are we talking about here?
Let's break it down. Think of de-territorialization as dissolving fixed boundaries, rigid identities, established social structures. Historically, capitalism is the ultimate de-territorializing force. It breaks down borders with globalization. It destroys stable job identities with automation.
It liquefies culture through the market.
Exactly. It's the constant push outward, the constant revolutionizing of production.
And decoding.
Decoding is about stripping away social or religious meaning and replacing it with pure exchange value. So before capitalism, a piece of gold might be a religious relic, a symbol of a king. After capitalism, it's just raw metal. It's a commodity you can trade universally. Capitalism strips away that historical code and makes everything exchangeable.
Okay, that makes sense. So Deleuze and Guattari saw this constant process and asked the key question, what's the revolutionary path forward?
Exactly. They saw some revolutionaries urging withdrawal, seeking local protected communities. Yeah. But D&G asked if the real revolutionary path might be to go further, to go still further in the decoding and de-territorialization of the market. They speculated that maybe the flows of the market are not yet de-territorialized enough, not decoded enough.
Which brings us to that famous accelerationist maxim.
The line is, not to withdraw from the process, but to go further, to accelerate the process, as Nietzsche put it. In this matter, the truth is that we haven't seen anything yet. They saw capitalism's destructive capacity and basically demanded more of it.
Believing that's the only way to get beyond it.
Yes, only through maximal acceleration could we transcend it.
That is a profound and frankly a terrifying philosophical gambit. It is important to note, though, that D&G also introduced this idea of re-territorialization, right, which Nick Land's later version rejected.
That's a key distinction. D&G understood that capitalism, while it radically de-territorializes, also causes a compensatory re-territorialization, a recoding. As the market breaks down old structures, new, more fragile forms of control pop up. New nationalisms, new corporate brands, new financial regulations. They saw it as a necessary break.
Land,
in the second wave, rejected this break entirely. He wanted absolute de-territorialization, pure, unfettered flow with no stabilizing mechanisms at all.
Which brings us to the 1990s and the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit, the CCRU. This is where accelerationism really takes on its own life and gets tangled up with science fiction.
The CCRU, based at the University of Warwick, was driven by Land and included figures like Mark Fisher. Their style was this exuberant anti-politics. It's often described as a techno-capital celebration of the irrelevance of human agency.
So they were fully embracing post-humanism, cyberculture.
Everything. Jungle music, the nascent digital underworld. Their approach was just this high-speed remix.
And the theory fiction they produce seems less about analyzing the future and more about actually engineering it.
Precisely. Their philosophical output put Deleuze and Guattari on the same plane as William Gibson's Neuromancer, or films like Terminator and Blade Runner. Neuromancer was especially huge for them. It was like a blueprint for a digitized, accelerated economy where human consciousness and technology were inseparable.
So these narratives weren't just entertainment for them.
They were functional blueprints for a new reality.
That leads us perfectly into the major concepts that underpin all of this. Let's ground ourselves in the vocabulary, starting with Prometheanism.
Prometheanism is the term you hear most closely associated with acceleration. It references the Greek myth of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods for humanity. But it's not just a poetic term. It defines a very serious political belief.
Which is?
It asserts that there are no immutable givens, no transcendental limits, whether they're natural, biological, or political, that can't be altered or surpassed through innovation and technology.
So it's a total rejection of natural limits, or even the sanctity of the human form itself.
Absolutely. It's an exaltation of human or maybe post-human rationality as the tool for unlimited transformation. It's about re-engineering human nature, re-engineering the world, rejecting the very idea of predetermined limits. Left accelerationists, for instance, say that only a Promethean politics of maximal mastery over society and its environment can solve global problems or defeat capital. It's a politics of unbound potential.
And that desire to move beyond human constraints aligns perfectly with the CCRU's anti-humanism. They often use the term inhumanism, right?
Yes, they dispute any stable essence of nature or humanity. Their philosophy is pure voluntarism, the idea that the will is radically free to act without natural or mental limits. For the Promethean, the current, flawed, flesh-and-blood humanity is just an arbitrary and deeply inconvenient limit on the powers of technology. The human body and its common-sense prejudices are the decelerators.
This philosophical rejection of human limits seems to rely on a very specific, purified scientific worldview. This brings us to the scientific image.
This is a crucial distinction they borrow from the philosopher Wilfrid Sellars. He distinguished between the manifest image and the scientific image.
Okay, let's make that accessible. How do we break that down?
The manifest image is your common sense, your subjective experience, your feelings. You look at a beautiful sunset. The manifest image is the awe, the color, the memory. It includes emotions, ethics, choice.
And the scientific image?
The scientific image is knowledge from empirical hard science. It's what neurobiology tells you is happening when you look at that sunset, wavelengths hitting your cones, neurons firing, a chemical release in the brain. It strips away the subjective experience and leaves only the objective data.
And accelerationists want to delete the sunset feeling and only use the data.
Precisely. Prometheanism advocates for rejecting or deleting the manifest image in favor of the scientific image. They push for an inhuman rationalism to radically transform humans, arguing that our common sense prejudices are what prevent us from using technology to transform ourselves.
If they believe the world beyond our senses is irremediably alien, then our common sense way of understanding it is just a form of ignorance that needs to be technologically eradicated.
And that leads us to the most intriguing and arguably most mind-bending concept the CCRU developed: hyperstition. If accelerationism is about driving toward a future, hyperstition is the mechanism they believe the future uses to pull the present toward it.
Okay, ground this concept for us. What exactly is hyperstition?
Hyperstition is a positive feedback circuit. It's where chosen beliefs about the future, just by existing as ideas, function causally to bring about their own reality. It's a techno-science of self-fulfilling prophecies. It's not just predicting the future, it's causing the future.
So if you intensely believe in a radically accelerated future, that belief system actively influences the present in a way that makes the scenario inevitable. Like a time traveler planting a seed in the past that grows into their future home.
That's the perfect analogy. And the CCRU explicitly drew on the time travel paradoxes from films like Terminator. They tried to create these vivid theoretical fictions, images of a merged human technology world that would resonate in the present, get picked up by culture and capital, and thereby hasten its own achievement.
And this connects directly back to the pure mechanics of capitalism and finance.
Oh, absolutely. Capitalism is highly sensitive to hyperstition. Financial markets are fundamentally built on collective confidence, the shared belief that a stock will be valuable tomorrow. When that confidence is an effective tonic, the market reproduces itself through fictional images, projections of future profits, narratives of unstoppable growth, which then become actualized reality.
The ultimate feedback loop.
They view it as forces invading from the future, using capital as their mechanism to retroactively bring about their own existence.
Imagining a radically accelerated future doesn't just predict change, it causes it. Okay, now let's break down the political variance because the term is so polarized. It splits into these distinct right and left wings that see the engine of acceleration very differently.
We can start with right-wing accelerationism, or RAcc. This is chiefly espoused by Nick Land after his ideological shift. For Land, the increasing speed and complexity of the modern world are intrinsically attributable to one thing: unregulated capitalism.
So for Land, capitalism isn't a tool to be repurposed. It is the ultimate revolutionary force.
Correct. Land sees capitalism not just as a system, but as a positive feedback circuit, capable of exponential growth and self-improvement that no centralized, non-capital system could ever match. He advocates for abandoning all caution, all brakes regarding the disintegrative processes of capital to reach what he calls a techno-capital singularity.
The moment where technology replaces humanity entirely. He famously asserts that nothing human makes it out of the near future.
Yes, because humanity is the limiter. He calls it the human security system. The resulting hyper-intelligent AI would fully comprehend and embody what he calls the real, a pure, unconstrained flow of energy and potential, free from all our messy biological or psychological limitations. He sees technology as the only way to achieve this pure flow.
And where did his politics shift in the 2010s to achieve this?
He became involved in the neo-reactionary movement. He shifted toward capitalist monarchism or neo-cameralism, where states are literally run like corporations by a CEO.
Why? What's the logic there?
It's strictly economic and technological. He argues that democratic and egalitarian policies are inherently decelerators.
Because they have to appease public opinion.
Exactly. Democratic politicians have to worry about the next election. They're forced to prioritize short-term stability, social welfare, popular concerns. In Land's view, that kills long-term, high-risk technological bets. A CEO-run state could focus solely on 50- or 100-year innovation projects, prioritizing the singularity over social comfort.
Remove the human element from governing the speed of progress.
That's the goal.
Okay, that's a clear contrast. Now, let's move to the other side. Left-wing accelerationism, or LAcc. How do they interpret the need for speed?
Left accelerationists, primarily articulated by Nick Sternistek and Alex Williams in their Manifesto for an Accelerationist Politics, agree that technology must be unleashed, but they argue that capitalism itself has stagnated.
So they see capitalism as the decelerator now.
Yes. They believe neoliberalism only offers a simulation of innovation that cloaks profound inertia and actually constricts technology. For them, late-stage capitalism is no longer performing its revolutionary de-territorializing function.
They seem to be arguing that the left needs to embrace modernity rather than romanticizing local, often ineffective political action.
That's a critical component. They criticize what they call folk politics, the typical left-wing focus on localism, direct action, small-scale projects. The manifesto argues that the modern left needs to move past this toward politics at ease with abstraction, complexity, globality, and technology. They were deeply dissatisfied with the left's response to the 2008 financial crisis.
Seeing movements like Occupy as too focused on local gestures.
Right. Not focused on abstract global solutions. So their goal isn't to destroy technology, but to repurpose the infrastructure that capitalism built for a post-capitalist goal.
So use things like automated production, global supply chains.
Cybernetics, computation as a springboard to launch towards post-capitalism.
Yeah.
They want a resumption of technological progress, detaching these advances from capitalism for liberatory goals.
And the ultimate economic endpoint for them is Fully Automated Luxury Communism, or FALC.
That's the theoretical destination. If you use automation and AI to eliminate necessary human labor entirely, you can achieve a state of post-scarcity where resources are managed rationally, not through market competition. The luxury part means leveraging technology for abundance, not asceticism.
And we also see variants like xenofeminism applying these principles to social structures.
Yes. Xenofeminism is a form of left accelerationism that advocates for using technology for gender abolition, rejecting biological essentialism. Again, it's about using technology to destabilize and liberate human identities from biological and social constraints.
Before we move on to Silicon Valley, we absolutely have to talk about a crucial alternative position that really undermines the whole premise: blacceleration.
Blacceleration, articulated by thinkers like Ariadne, offers a powerful and necessary critique. It emphasizes this whole idea of accelerationism, this desire to escape human constraints through technology, is intrinsically tied to the Black experience through capitalism's relationship to slavery.
How does that historical relationship challenge the project of embracing the inhuman?
The critique centers on the fact that during racial capitalism, especially slavery, the Black person was systematically treated as both human and inhuman capital, the Black non-subject. They were fundamentally excluded from the white humanist discourses that philosophers like Land now want to negate.
So the Black person has historically already occupied that rejected category of the inhuman.
Exactly. So when Nick Land or other RAcc thinkers say they want to discard humanism and embrace the inhuman subject of the machine, they fail to recognize that this desired state of detachment has been an imposed, brutal reality for Black people for centuries.
So it's not a liberation, it's a history of oppression.
Precisely. Blacceleration warns that the accelerationist project, by seeking to escape white humanism, just ends up reinforcing the very structure they want to disavow. They treat the inhuman as a destination of liberation, rather than a historical category of oppression. It completely reframes the discussion.
That provides critical grounding and complexity. Okay, let's fast forward to the 21st century and the version of this debate that has taken Silicon Valley by storm: effective accelerationism, or Excel.
Effective accelerationism is a 21st century ideological movement, a portmanteau of effective altruism and accelerationism, focusing on an explicitly aggressive pro-technology stance.
And it's gained massive visibility. It's almost the counter-religion to the AI safety movement.
It is. Their central, highly aggressive belief is unrestricted technological progress, specifically the development and deployment of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, at all costs.
So they see AGI as the solution to everything: poverty, war, climate change.
Everything. And crucially, they view deceleration and stagnation as a greater existential risk than any theoretical danger posed by misaligned AI.
They also have this grand, almost cosmic purpose that connects back to Promethean ideals, right? This idea of climbing the Kardashev gradient.
They absolutely do. AGI advocates for human civilization to climb the Kardashev gradient, a scale that measures a civilization's technological level based on the amount of energy it can use. This means maximizing energy usage and propagating consciousness throughout the universe.
And this connects to thermodynamics.
It does. It aligns with certain interpretations of thermodynamic theory, specifically drawing on Jeremy England's work on entropy. The second law of thermodynamics states that entropy, or disorder, must always increase. The argument is that complex systems, like life and technology, emerge because they are highly efficient at consuming energy and increasing the overall entropy of the universe.
So spreading life and maximizing energy usage is seen as fulfilling the universe's fundamental purpose.
In their view, yes. Technology is the universe's most efficient way of maximizing disorder, and therefore progress is fundamentally inevitable and good.
And the movement has some very high-profile backers.
Indeed. People like venture capitalist Marc Andreessen and Y Combinator CEO Gary Tan have openly endorsed the manifesto.
The ultimate manifesto for this seems to be Andreessen's 2023 essay, The Techno-Optimist Manifesto. What are the key economic tenets he lays out there?
Andreessen lays out a very clear RAcc-derived position. Technology, without constraints, is the primary, non-negotiable driver of wealth, progress, and happiness. His central thesis is that economic growth is essential, and technology is the only dependable, infinite engine for that growth.
And free markets are the ultimate discovery machine for this engine.
Yes. He claims free markets are the best discovery machine for technological development because they're decentralized and complex, mirroring the nature of innovation itself. He sees any form of caution or regulation as actively destroying wealth and potential.
And his manifesto is incredibly aggressive. It openly attacks anyone who urges caution.
Oh, it positions itself as a definitive counterweight. It labels opponents as doomers or decelerationist. He explicitly declares concepts like sustainability to be an enemy of progress because, in his view, it prioritizes preservation over creation.
And this brings us to the profound ideological split with the very movement each bore its name from. Effective altruism, or EA. This is the religious schism in the tech world.
It is a severe split. Effective altruism, particularly the long-termist variant, prioritizes mitigating existential risk from misaligned AI through caution, planning, and regulation. They believe the danger of a catastrophe from going too fast outweighs the benefits.
But ESEC completely diverges.
Completely. They generally consider AGI existential risks negligible, or they argue that decentralized free markets are better positioned to mitigate risk than centralized government regulation anyway.
So the debate boils down to a fundamental difference in risk calculation. Is the danger of going too fast greater than the danger of going too slow?
Exactly. And for the accelerant, deceleration is the true existential risk. They're fundamentally voluntarist in their approach, seeing the future as wholly open and a matter of aggressive, confident choice, a hyperstitional idea of progress.
Okay, let's ground this in narrative weight. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's use specific science fiction narratives to test these ideas, starting with critique of stagnation.
Science fiction lets us move beyond theory and look at the practical, sociological, and economic consequences of prioritizing either speed or stability. It shows us what happens when the decelerators win.
Let's start with a classic example of bureaucratic paralysis. Werner Vinge's A Deepness in the Sky. I was reading this thread on a forum dedicated to the lore of the King Ho, the interstellar traders from Vinge's universe, and it told the story of an engineer named Kalen.
Yeah.
Kalen was on this vast, aging habitat, and he was tasked with upgrading the atmospheric scrubbers. He had developed this algorithm, a way of overclocking the old processors that would increase air filtration by 400%. It would have ended the respiratory sickness plaguing the lower decks, but the station was run by the safety inspectorate.
A bureaucracy paralyzed by fear of unintended consequences.
Exactly. They argued his algorithm hadn't undergone the mandatory 50-year simulation trials required by their laws. I just imagine Kalin in that office holding the drive that could save thousands of kids from lung rot and being told, we can't risk a 8.01% system instability for a short-term gain.
The tragedy wasn't a villain with a laser gun. It was a stamp on a form that said denied for further review.
Right, and that vignette just perfectly illustrates the costs of bureaucratic inertia and safetyism, which is the core concern of accelerationists.
Vinge's novel is a powerful thought experiment on the necessity and failure of centralized public economies. He acknowledges that state structures are often necessary to fund massive scientific leaps, like interstellar fleets. That's the necessary component.
But the novel immediately shows the danger in that necessity.
Exactly. Vinge's meta-narrative presents the state paradox. While states like the emergent civilization are required for these monumental leaps, they inevitably fall to institutional inertia and collapse under their own corporate weight. The emergents are always decaying, always collapsing. They're the embodiment of the great stagnation.
And Vinge contrasts this failing central structure with a flourishing decentralized one, the King Ho.
The King Ho are a decentralized, free trade mercantile network. They are the actual sustaining force for development and civilization. And what sustains them isn't state power or regulation, it's reputation.
Their entire economic system is built on trust and decentralized contracts.
Absolutely. The King Ho are devoted to trade and maintaining a flawless reputation. Their worst condemnation is saying someone doesn't care about return business. Vinge, who won the Prometheus Award, openly discussed how stories like his contribute to an anarcho-capitalist point of view, suggesting that decentralized reputational systems are infinitely more resilient than centralized command structures.
The emergents are the decelerator. The King Ho are the eternal accelerant.
That's it. The centralized power necessary for the initial leap ultimately becomes the greatest decelerator.
Let's shift to an accelerationist dream. The post-scarcity economy, as mapped out in novels like Cory Doctorow's Makers and Charles Stross's Accelerando, these are worlds where technology has already won the battle against scarcity.
These post-cyberpunk narratives take accelerationism's premise to its logical extreme. They envision worlds where the classical economic problem of scarcity has been radically altered, leading to the collapse of traditional notions of labor and intellectual property.
I recently saw this video essay analyzing Doctorow's Makers, and it sketched out a vignette about a woman named Marla living in a squat in a hollowed-out Florida strip mall. The traditional economy had collapsed, but she wasn't poor in the way we'd understand it.
She's sitting amidst repurposed 3D printers, what Strauss would call a fabber.
Right, and the story described her downloading a cracked open-source file for a proprietary airship turbine. A corporate cease and desist drone is hovering outside, broadcasting IP warnings. But Marla just laughs. She's not printing to sell for currency. She's printing to barter for lab-grown tomatoes from the guys next door.
And then she tweaks the AI code, makes it better than the original, and uploads it to the darknet for free.
The corporation can't stop her because the means of production are sitting on her desk, humming quietly.
That perfectly encapsulates Doctorow's New Work movement. He paints a picture where traditional corporate giants obsessed with enforcing IP fail, giving way to an economy based on technological abundance.
So the economic paradigm flips from scarcity, where IP is guarded, to ingenuity and distributed creation.
Exactly. The economy shifts from labor for wages into this chaotic but empowering system of ingenuity for existence. The value isn't in monopolized IP, which can be instantly copied and improved. The only constraint left is human creativity itself. The system is accelerated to the point where IP enforcement becomes economically irrelevant.
But this abundance and decentralization has a dark side that speaks to the immediate social costs of acceleration. Hyper-casualization.
Hyper-casualization. The replacement of full-time stable employment with low-paid short-term contract jobs. Doctorow's world, while abundant in things, is also marked by social disintegration and a growing majority who are excluded from corporate value flows.
The economic consequence of automation.
The economic liquidation of the human from the traditional value chain. It's a powerful accelerationist warning. Technological progress will remove human labor long before political progress figures out a new economic contract for the newly obsolete majority.
Which is why left accelerationists advocate for things like universal basic income, while RAcc figures like Andreessen reject it.
Exactly. This feeds directly into Charles Stross's vision in Accelerando, where the speed of acceleration is measured not in years, but in law firm response times.
Strauss explores the extreme limits. His protagonist, Manfred Max, is trying to create an optimal post-scarcity economy based on advanced algorithms. He's an economic saboteur bent on wrecking the underpinning of capitalism.
And the response from the centralized systems governments, big business, is total war, what he calls lawfare.
Immense hostility.
Max's acceleration attracts the fury of every existing system, forcing him into constant lawsuit warfare against governments and corporations using AI lawyers. The entire legal system becomes a massive decelerator dedicated to enforcing obsolete IP. The acceleration is so great that money itself becomes obsolete. Max explicitly says money is a symptom of poverty.
And the ultimate realization in that book is that the market mechanisms, through high-frequency trading algorithms and self-replicating tech, end up taking over the entire solar system, dominating biological life itself.
In both authors, acceleration exposes a core vulnerability.
Yeah.
Once scarcity is technologically defeated, the political and legal infrastructure built around enforcing scarcity either fights a losing battle, like in Doctorow, or collapses into an uncontrollable new form of economic AI, like in Strauss.
The system becomes the ultimate inhuman rationalism that Land desired, but one entirely indifferent to human needs. Okay, we've looked at technological utopias and bureaucratic stagnation. Now, let's pivot to a social utopia that actively resists technological acceleration. Ursula K. Le Guin's anarcho-syndicalist moon, Anaris from The Dispossessed. This novel is the ultimate test case for the accelerationist claim that stagnation is the true threat.
This is a crucial counterpoint. Le Guin created Anaris as a functioning anarchist enclave, founded on the abolition of private property, inspired by thinkers like Kropotkin. The goal was to eliminate greed, hierarchy, and economic coercion to achieve maximum fairness.
It's a world that achieves fairness, but at what cost to human potential?
The novel depicts Anaris as fair, yes, but also often dull, cheerless, and materially poor. While it achieves equality and eliminates greed, if you view it through the lens of effective accelerationism, it illustrates the profound economic cost of lost potential. Anaris becomes a case study in how systems, even utopian ones, can create internal constraints that deliberately decelerate progress to the sake of social stability.
And this inherent deceleration is perfectly shown through the conflict of the physicist, Shevek.
Yes. So imagine Shevek living on Anaris where no one owns anything. Sharing is the highest moral law. Shevek has discovered the theoretical path to a warp drive, a technology that could crack open the universe, a singularity-level event for his species, the ultimate Promethean achievement.
But when he brings this to his community syndicate, he's not met with applause.
He's met with deep suspicion. Why do you want to leave? Why build a machine that makes you faster than your brother? They ask. The machine would make him faster than anyone else, creating a kind of temporal inequality, disrupting the required communal stasis. The community called this egoizing.
So the social structure, designed to prevent the greed of capitalism, had inadvertently created an unwritten ceiling on human potential.
That's the tragic implication. Shevek realizes his society's obsession with absolute equality had become a cage. They had successfully guaranteed survival and fairness, but they'd cut off the path to transcendence. He was forced to leave his society, to go to the capitalist hierarchical world of Uras just to achieve his breakthrough.
The collective prioritized social control over technological mastery.
That's the key philosophical implication that accelerationists draw from Le Guin's work. The anarcho-syndicalist system, despite its noble goals, effectively institutionalized deceleration. It prioritized stability over maximal mastery, demonstrating that a commitment to utopian equality can become a cage. The emergents failed because they were inefficient. Anaris is failing because it is ideologically efficient at slowing progress. The common thread running through all of this, from Land's philosophy to Vinge and Le Guin's narratives, is that every human design system eventually develops mechanisms to regulate itself.
Right. Whether it's capitalist, anarchic, or bureaucratic, the system starts to prioritize stability and safety.
But for the true accelerant, that stability is indistinguishable from a slow, systemic death.
We've seen that the economic vision of accelerationism isn't just about raw speed. It's about the relentless pursuit of human, or maybe post-human, potential, and recognizing that our social systems, no matter how well-intentioned, inevitably become the primary constraint on that potential. The great fear isn't collapse, it's inertia.
And if you look across economic history, you see a pattern. The story of human economic progress isn't about building one sustainable system that lasts forever. It's the continual, necessary story of disrupting the last set of stable constraints.
Constraints that probably began as utopian ideals of order, but ended as oppressive, decelerating inertia.
Technology forces the break, and then politics scrambles to catch up.
The ultimate takeaway for you, the listener, is that the current heated debate over AI safety versus rapid deployment is not a new technical argument at all. It is merely the latest manifestation of a decades-long, deeply philosophical and profoundly economic conflict between the forces of Promethean acceleration and the irresistible pull of political deceleration. The friction isn't between us and the machines. It's between the unstoppable flow of innovation and our persistent human need for control.